Howdy folks, this is Coffee Break, and welcome to the C0ffeecast Analysis game of WhiteRa's versus Lava Whistler. The reason I am doing an analysis for this game is because I want to show you guys how WhiteRa's executes his carrier rush strategy, because it is fairly interesting, and according to day 9, WhiteRa's has a super high win rate with this strat. So I thought it might be a good one, just to kind of tuck into your books, tuck into the back, maybe even use it on ladder a few times, just because it sounds like a lot of fun. And yeah, there's my explanation for that. We are gonna, of course, start off with a force fastest command, just because that is always what you are going to do in Protoss vs Zerg. That's not only the state of the matchup, it's just about the only thing you can do. I mean, I guess you do have your 3 gate expands and your probe rush, but other than that, if you're nanny wall, you can pull a nanny wall. There we go. So this strategy is going to take a lot of resources, and I mean a lot of resources. Stargate costing 150, fleet beacon costing 300, 200, and carriers, I believe, costing 350, 250. It's gonna take a lot to get this going, and so you're gonna see a couple of slightly unconventional pieces to this strategy, just things that are a little bit out of the norm, and I will talk to you guys about that when those moments arise. Let's go ahead and get to the real meat of the game. I will be pausing at points throughout this game to go ahead and bring up points. And the first one is coming up in just a couple of seconds here. Bam! Right there. Right there. We are having these 2 assimilators being taken right after this gateway. And if you're wondering why WhiteRa's is supply blocked, he did have a pylon over here that got destroyed, blocking the expansion of the Zerg player. So, normally that won't be happening. But, 2 assimilators right after that gateway is started. This is not going to be the standard, gateway assimilator, cyber assimilator. You're going to need a lot more gas than that. And so the earlier you can begin accumulating this gas amount, the better off you're going to be. And one thing I want to focus on in this game is talking about timings relative to play clock or building timing rather than supply so much. The build order that's going to be in the info section below this video is going to be mainly focused on these on the supply count. However, I want to focus on the dynamic timings and building timings rather than supply count. And in relativeness, and speaking of building timings, what I mean by that, Cybernetics core is just over halfway finished. Drop your 3rd gas. Once again, going to need a lot of gas to do this build, and right after the Cybernetics core is finished up, I want you to take this 3rd gas. That is going to help you a lot with this build. And other than that, I mean, you're seeing things fairly standard. Here's the first interesting point that's going to depend on the game you're in. We actually see WhiteRa's going for air weapons level 1 before getting warp gate tech. Now, a lot of the time, I would consider this fairly risky, except for the fact that he just got a probe in here, saw this 3rd base going up. And if we look at the all cam here, and I'm sure WhiteRa's clicked on this building, he knew where it was in its building production timing. We can see it's just about to finish up, so we know that this base was started around that 4-minute mark. And indeed, if we go back to about the 4-minute mark here and wait for it to get laid down, there should be a drone on the way, I believe. Oh, I'm only on ×2. Speed this up like a mofo. Bam! And it just got placed wrong. But there we go, right there, 445. Hatchery is placed down. So because we have this super fast 3rd base, WhiteRa's knows that it is perfectly safe to go ahead and get air weapons level 1 first. And that's just going to make his air play a little bit stronger. And I will speak a little bit more about another reason why you may or may not want to use this upgrade. But in accordance to what the Zerg player has, because he took this fast 3rd base, the reason it's alright to go ahead and get the air weapons rather than the warp gate, just let's go ahead and look over at the unit station. There are 3 Zerglings on the map. 3 Zerglings. This is going to take quite a little time to finish, quite a while to finish, about 3 minutes. But there really isn't a lot the Zerg player can throw at WhiteRa's right now. WhiteRa's with a cannon or 2 at the front is going to be completely safe from any sort of aggression that the Zerg player can throw at him because this 3rd base is up. If you do not scout this 3rd base, do not go air weapons. Get your warp gate tech because you're probably going to need that for defense. You're going to need that for defense. So that's one of those little deviation things. It's just going to depend on what exactly is happening in your game. And right there, our next point around the 7-minute mark or around the 40 supply mark, whichever you want to look at, around the 7-minute mark, lay down your 2 Stargates. Lay down your 2 Stargates. And make sure you get the stalker out fairly quickly so that you can deny any scouting. There is an overlord right over here. It's kind of flying around the area. And, wait. There we go. I want to pause right here again. I know I'm pausing a lot, but this all has a purpose, I promise. We have 2 Void Rays coming out onto the field. This is going to be another one of those things that you need to decide whether you want to do it or not. Really up to you. Crunch on the ice at the bottom of a glass of water. Oh, it feels so empowering. So, if you want to do heavy airplay, get these 2 Voiders. I mean, if you're going to get a lot of air and stick with that airplay, go ahead and get these 2 Void Rays. They will help your carriers quite a bit. Quite a bit. And it'll give you the air superiority. Void Rays obviously do pretty high DPS of their own. And that brings me over back to this +1 air weapons upgrade. If you're going to be going heavy airplay, definitely get this. Either before or after that warp gate tech. Definitely going to be worth it, as we will talk about that with carriers in just a little bit, how it really just stacks up so fast getting these upgrades for the carriers. But if you're not planning on doing heavy airplay, if you're planning on getting a couple carriers and then just having them be a support unit for your army, I would not recommend getting these 2 Void Rays, actually. Instead of getting these 2 Void Rays, drop a couple of extra gateways, drop 2 or 3 gateways, and get a Twilight Council and get Charge. Charge will be a very nice upgrade to complement your carriers. And while it does cost 200 gas and another 200 gas for Charge and 150 for that Twilight Council, that's already made up in the fact that you didn't get your Void Rays. The Charge is going to allow you to pump Zealots out. Gas is definitely by far going to be the limiting factor in this build. And we'll actually see WhiteRa's taking this 4th geyser fairly soon. So gas is going to be the limiting factor. Charge lots are going to be able to A, spend the extra minerals you have, and B, if your opponent starts pumping out Hydralisks, they're going to be able to get up in those Hydralisk lines. Hydralisk will not be able to, well, one of 2 things happens. The Hydralisk will either A, get shredded up by the Zealots, or B, focus the Zealots and get shredded up by the carriers. So, if you're going to go airplay, go ahead, get these 2 Void Rays. If you're going to go just a few carriers to support your army, go ahead, get Charge lots instead. Get Charge lots instead. So one of the first big timings you're going to have to worry about if your Zerg opponent does not take this 3rd base is about a 10-minute Mutalisk timing attack, 10-minute Mutalisk harass. And if that is coming, drop some cannons, maybe consider getting a couple Phoenix instead of carriers. But really, you won't have too much problem defending against that. Another thing you're going to need to worry about is attacks onto your expansion here. We see WhiteRa's, if you look over at the Union Counting Station, has a single Stalker and a single Zealot. You're just not going to have that much of a ground army with this strategy. It's just going to be part of the strategy. So you're going to need a lot of static defense. Go ahead and back up. And you see, it's going to be really difficult for WhiteRa's to establish his 3rd base. And one thing I did not point out in the cast of this game, look at these reflections. Oh gosh, that is so beautiful. I'm so glad I can do this on ultra settings, because that is very pretty. Now we're almost at the end of what I want to talk about here. One thing I do want to mention, that +1 upgrade for the carriers does massive amounts of extra damage. That is +1 times 8. And for those of you that can do 1 times 8, that's 8 more damage. And That's a lot. I think that's just about the most you will get out of any upgrade. Battle cruisers, I think, are comparable to that. And so if you're going to be sticking with that airplay, the +1 weapons for the air, definitely worth it. And also, for those of you who do not know, if you select your carriers and right-click the build interceptor, your interceptors will auto-make, kind of like telling an SCV to auto-repair. So you don't have to queue up a bunch of interceptors, they'll just make one at a time, and you don't lose a bunch of resources in queuing up those units. And plus when one dies, it immediately restarts. Now once again, we have these roaches here. The roaches and zerglings are going to go ahead, go for a counterattack over here. There are a couple of cannons in place, but again, you're going to notice, WhiteRa, 2 zealots, 2 stalkers. Not much of a ground army. That's going to be kind of a trade-off you're going to have if you go for this heavy airplay. And it's going to be something that you're going to need to be very careful about. And that's why I'm saying you might want to prefer to go a little bit heavier ground play. Cut out those first couple of void rays, get charge. It will help you survive. That's a survivability option. This is kind of that powerful, you know, if you can get this up and running, once these next couple of air units pop out, you're going to see WhiteRa start to really take a commanding lead in this game. He's going to have a super powerful air army, and with all of his Aryans, going to easily be able to defend this base. So that's about all I have for this. Just going back, I want to point out a couple of things. Going back to about the 4-minute mark, first of all. And right about there, you're going to want to take both of these assimilators after the gateway. Take your 2 assimilators after your gateway because you're going to need that gas. Speeding up. Right there, cybernetics core goes down at the halfway point. When your cybernetics core is about halfway done, lay down your 3rd assimilator. That's when you want to take that 3rd one. And make sure you're getting these saturated right as soon as they finish, because once again, you really need all the gas that you can get with this build. All the gas you can get. Jumping forward, right there maybe? It's not an exact science. I didn't quite get close enough. I didn't really actually change anything at all. So we're just going to wait through this, and right there, around the 7-minute mark, go ahead and drop your 2 Stargates. Around 7 minutes or around 40 supply, drop your 2 Stargates. And only go for this air weapons if you see your opponent has taken a very fast 3rd, and if you plan on sticking with the airplay. And if you plan on sticking with heavy airplay throughout your game. And there's 1 or 2 last things I do want to mention. Number 1, fleet beacon right as soon as the Stargates finish. Before you do anything, get that fleet beacon. And then we're going to see WhiteRa do 2 void rays. If you want to do heavy airplay, get these 2 void rays out. Once again, heavy airplay, +1 air weapons, 2 void rays. If you want to do ground play and have carriers be a support unit with your army, don't get these 2 void rays, get a couple of gateways instead, and work your way towards that charge upgrade. Charge will help you a lot with this strategy, and about the time the fleet beacon goes down, you're going to want to take your final gas as well. And I believe that is just about all I have for you guys. Definitely do a little bit of poking and prodding if you go ahead and get these void rays. Just make sure not to lose them. You really can't afford to lose them in this early game because it's kind of a fragile strategy at the beginning. Kind of a fragile strategy. You're going to notice that it's going to be difficult to take a 3rd base. You're just not going to have much of a ground army probably for a little while. That is okay. That is alright. It's going to be difficult to take that 3rd. Be persistent. Be persistent. Don't be afraid to use static defense. And don't be afraid to lose that 3rd base a couple times, be forced to cancel it a couple times before it gets going. Because you're going to have a super powerful air army. And unless your Zerg opponent kind of does an all-out air strategy himself, he's probably going to find himself in a lot of trouble defending against it. You can even see with Hydralisk here, not going to be able to do all that much damage. And that is about all I have for you guys with this build. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and thank you very much for joining me here on the analysis of WhiteRa's carrier rush strategy. It's going to be a very, very interesting thing. I don't think this is going to be one of those big trends that catches on, but I think it's going to be one of those nice things to have in your arsenal. Play it in a LAN or two, play it in a couple ladder games. Send me your replays of you doing this, because I think this is a really cool strategy, and I actually think a lot of Protoss players could benefit from using the carriers a little bit. They really are a very strong unit. They really are. They can do a lot of damage if they are used properly. So go ahead, if you have any replays of that, send them to coffeebreak1337@gmail.com. That is coffeebreak with an O, 1337@gmail.com, and I will go ahead and cast those because I love putting up your content. If you ever have any good games, go ahead and send those to me at that same email address. Also, please check out my website at coffeebreak.weebly.com. It's coffeebreak with a 0.weebly, weebly.com, and there you can find a newbie guide for you younger players. You guys can check out the community page and find players to practice with, to get a little bit of coaching from, or you can go to the VODs page and just find a really easy setup. You know, find the best of 3 matches, find all the matches I've casted just in a very nice logical order, very easy to follow. And also you can find a link to my blog from there, where I'm going to be blogging about the difficulties and some tips about becoming an amateur caster, trying to get the audience, and about current states of the game, current things about the metagame that I find interesting, or just little tips and tricks to help you excel in your ladder play, which I will be honest, that will all have a little bit of a Protoss bias, mainly because I'm a Protoss player and I can't really speak in terms of Zerg or Terran as well. I will try to get a little bit of Zerg and Terran content in there, but my most recent one was Protoss vs Zerg Mutalisks, stopping Mutalisks as a Protoss player, as it can be a little bit difficult because there are a lot of there is a lot of Mutalisk play out right now, starting to take over that Infestor play. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is Coffee Break, and thank you very, very much for joining me here on the Coffee Cast. I am going to go ahead and sign off here, and again, send me your replays of the strat because it is a good one. So until next time, this is Coffee Break signing out.